Welcome to Life Under Construction, the podcast about growth, leadership, and rebuilding the parts of life and business that matter most. I'm Ingrid, alongside your co-host Brooke. We have honest conversations about entrepreneurship, personal evolution, and the life lessons we learn along the way, sometimes the hard way. Whether you're navigating change, building something new, or redefining success in your own terms, we're so glad you're here. Now let's get into it.
All right. Welcome back to Life Under Construction. I'm Ingrid Ricks.
And I'm Brooke Jennings.
And today we are so excited about the conversation that we are going to have because we are going to talk about who you are while you are still becoming.
Yes, that's right. Not when things are polished or figured out, but right in the middle of growth, change, and leadership in real time.
That's right. And today we have a very special guest, someone who is the world's very first Chief Heart Officer at VaynerX. And she is someone that leads the company's culture, leadership, and emotional intelligence. And it's at a large scale. I believe she oversees about 2,500 team members, if I have my facts correct. But also, she is the author of an amazing book that I've had the pleasure of reading, Be Yourself at Work. So today we are so honored and excited to introduce to you Claude Silver. Claude, thank you so much for being on our show.
I'm so excited, Brooke and Ingrid. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Now, I first met Claude back in 2021 when we were at a leadership conference in San Antonio, Texas, but had the pleasure of meeting her again in 2022 when that same leadership group had the opportunity to visit VaynerMedia's headquarters in New York. Now, one of the amazing things that I noticed when I met Claude was just how genuine and real and very approachable she is as a human being. Now, Claude, you talk about in your book how to be yourself at work. So one of the things that we wanted to ask you was in your journey to becoming Chief Heart Officer, who were you when you were just stepping into that role?
Oh, yes. So I was stepping into that role. It'll be 11 years, believe it or not, in a couple months. Who was I? I was, I had been at VaynerMedia for about 16 months prior. I was an SVP running a very large account of business. And I resigned. I mean, there's a story before I resigned, but I resigned to my boss, Gary Vaynerchuk, which in itself was a very big deal for me I actually worked with a coach to help me get very clear on why I was leaving and what I wanted to do next. So when I stepped into the role, not only was I extremely pumped because I was like, okay, there's really no job description here. So I'm going to make this up, and I'm going to make it up in a culture that I love with people that I love. I also felt an enormous amount of both gratitude and autonomy at the same point, if that makes sense. I was going to be able to bring not only my whole self, my real self to work as I had been, but also bring some liberal arts, bring some fun things in, some hocus pocus to a lot of spirituality to what I did. So I felt very liberated and free. I felt a lot of gratitude. And then it was like, okay, go, and starts. And, it started, very split. I've never done HR in my life, but I had to learn the art of HR along with being me and an emotionally intelligent, emotionally fluent person. And so, very shortly after I had to deal with like maybe the first HR issue I ever had to deal with. And I was like, oh God, this is uncomfortable here. Like there's there's all kinds of stuff involved. I'm not sure if I really like it. But making it my own and changing the name of the department to people and experience and bringing heart into HR, but really bringing heart into the culture is, that's my love.
Yeah. And the thing is, there's this fear about HR. And so sometimes people just feel uncomfortable even having conversations with HR for whatever reason. And I think it's pretty incredible. You share stories in your book about people being vulnerable in front of you. And that doesn't happen very often in today's culture.
Well, what's interesting is I forget that. It doesn't happen in today's culture. Now, I know I had the same stigma around HR for the zillion of years I was in the workforce before. And so I forget sometimes that it's not as easy as we make it to be, but I want it to be easy. I want people to be able to express themselves and see what we can do for them, how we can get them from good to great and great to exceptional, or get them out the door if it's not for them. So that's, every time I hear something like that, I always have to say, yeah, that's right. It's not easy for everyone.
Yeah. One thing about your story that's so inspiring to me is that you knew what you didn't want, and then you also knew what you wanted. And I think in the world we live in right now, when so many people and we have, such access to social media and are so inundated in other people's lives and other people's wants, there are probably a lot of people who are listening who are in a season where they don't know who they are. They feel that they aren't fully formed yet. What do you think people misunderstand about authenticity when they're still in that season of figuring things out?
Well, it's a great question because I think it all leads back to self-awareness. So while you're figuring yourself out, you are becoming more aware. It's a journey. It's not going to happen in a day, and it's not going to happen in 2 weeks. It's going to be a journey that you choose to be on. And while you're on that journey and you're understanding who you are, what you like, what you don't like, what are your triggers, all of that stuff, that is allowing you to become more. You're just shedding skin, shedding layers. Oh, I don't need that anymore. Oh, I understand why that upsets me when someone interrupts me 12 times. Oh, I understand, so you start to understand you. And I feel like the more one understands themselves, the easier it can be to share yourself if you choose to.
Yes. And in your book, you have a list of questions that I loved so much to create that self awareness in people. And one of the questions, as I answered it, I thought, you know what? There are times when I don't feel worthy to be in the space that I'm in. And so it allowed me to really sit with that. So thank you for that.
Yes. And by the way, I want you to know, me too. Me too. I think it's something that for whatever reason, some of us will juggle for X amount of time, and some of us will juggle other things. But thank you for mentioning that.
I think when you become more self-aware, it's really uncomfortable, right? Because you're realizing some of the flaws in your triggers that sometimes isn't the best version of yourself. And one, it's acceptance to identify that and really have to deal with it. So in your opinion, how do you personally show up when clarity hasn't really fully arrived yet?
When clarity fully hasn't arrived yet, the thing I try to do is say, I don't have all the pieces yet. I don't understand yet, or I feel like I'm missing something. Is there more context? It's almost like, for me, it's like jumping into a sentence midway and I don't know the setup. You know what I mean? I don't know how the entire like, why is this sentence here? What came before it?
Mm-hmm.
At work, it's something that I learned to do early on, probably because I was dyslexic and had a lot of questions. But I do have to have things sometimes slowly spelled out for me. I'm very visual, so I need things visually to make sense for me, to make the equation work. And so I've always felt comfortable. I had to work to feel comfortable to say, can you explain that for me?
Mm-hmm.
And even with my boss, Gary Vaynerchuk, like I remember in our first couple years, he has a different way of speaking. And sometimes it's like incredibly metaphoric and incredibly like from left field over here. And so I would have to say, can you break that down for me? I don't know what that means,
Right.
Which I felt comfortable doing. I didn't want to miss a beat. So
Right.
asking those questions almost allows you to remind you that, you belong here. It's okay. It's okay. You're worthy of asking the questions. You belong here. You want to do your best. So make sure you understand.
It's just having that safe environment to feel comfortable enough to have that safe conversation to ask those questions, right? Because I think, to your point, Claude, is sometimes people just take the pause because they don't want to feel silly asking the question or having somebody break things down for you because you don't want to feel a certain way. You don't want to feel like you don't belong there. You don't want to feel like you don't know what you're doing. So having that safe environment is important, right?
Yes. And you, me, we create the safe environment inside. So it might not always be outside, but if you feel that safety, that confidence, that, you know what, I'm going to take up some space here and ask a question, like that's part of the self-awareness. One of the things I really want to get out there in many ways is we can't expect everything to be created for us. We have to go to the ball. We have to make things happen. And so if you're in a culture that isn't that inviting, figure out if you have that in you to step up and step out, right? Because this is your life. So anyway, we need a psychologically safe environment, right? We all want that. We pray for that, but we also need to create that inside.
Yes, 1000%. And on one of the, I don't remember if it was a talk I heard you give, but you were talking about how for a long time you sold yourself the story of, I'm not smart.
Oh, yeah.
And so when you were saying, if you don't understand something, you ask the question, it made me think about, that's emotional bravery because it's easy to just say that, but there was so much work that went into getting you to that place to where you can confidently ask the question and understand that, hey, I am a smart human being and smart people ask questions. That's how they gain more knowledge. And I know you talk about emotional bravery, and we often hear that framed after confidence is built. But what does emotional bravery look like before confidence catches up?
Well, it looks like questioning yourself a lot and saying, should I? I know I can. Should I? What's going to happen? Future tripping. It can be a lot of like, do I put my foot out there? Do I not put my foot out there? And it doesn't have to always come before emotional optimism, of course, but that emotional optimism is giving you the faith and the hope, the belief, the possibility that things can change, things can get better, that that it's going to be a new day tomorrow. So if you have that behind you, then the bravery is a little bit easier to take because you're like, okay, I'm safe. I'm safe here. I got it. I know that I can use my voice in this situation. And so it's almost like you kind of do the self-talk in some way.
Yeah.
You have to talk yourself into then taking the action, going to the ball, voicing your concern, speaking up. People aren't going to do that for us.
So
That's
true.
right.
So true. It's like whatever you want, you got to recognize it and get after it.
Yes, that's it. Get after it. No one to hold them, no one to fold them.
So, Claude, when you were talking about when you first stepped into your role, obviously you didn't have all the answers, right? And you had to have a lot of maybe uncomfortable conversations. So, how do you communicate honestly with team members when you don't yet have even all the answers yourself?
Yeah. And I'm smiling because I still don't have all the answers. And so one of the things that I do is connect people to people that I think have the answers. I don't know. I'm not able to, but let me introduce you to this guy who's just like a whiz when it comes to paid media, or let me introduce you to this person, that kind of stuff. So a lot of what I do in the workplace is connecting people. Or even if I do have the answer, it's not going to be grounded in whatever they need. It's not, if they're like, I want to learn more about X, I'm not the teacher for X, unless it's really around human behavior and the things that I study quite a bit. So I have learned to say, I don't have the answer, but I'd love to connect you to someone that does. And I think that's one of the gifts of working at where I work, which is everything really is built around connective tissue and not being afraid. So many times during my week, during the month, you will hear me say in a one-on-one or in group settings, I'm not here to teach you anything. You already know. I might be unlocking a door for you, but there's nothing I'm going to teach you that you don't know already. And so I almost kind of reframe it in a way of empowering them.
Yeah, I love that. And so, in having to deal with a huge network of teams, and where do you see leaders unintentionally hide behind competence instead of humility?
Yeah, it's key. That is so key. Yeah, when I see politicking, when I see needing to feel like they're the smartest in the room, which they're not. No one is. The room is. When I see leaders needing to interrupt others and get their point across, where you're like, okay, my friend, you were a junior copywriter once upon a time. So like, let's give this one an opportunity to use their voice, even if you think you're right, you know? So that's probably what I see. A lot of kind of like, wearing leader on your chest here as a badge, rather than the humility of, I'm just like you, I'm just learning. The only difference between me and you is I have a lot more lived experience because I'm older than you, right? So that's a big difference. I have learned things because I've probably gone through some things in my 30s, and you're 25, right? So that kind of stuff. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Right. Yeah. But I think that's where that hubris shows up, or where you feel like someone's just explaining for the sake of like hearing themselves talk. You're like, I got it in minute 3.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. And it's funny because we've all met those folks where they sometimes just let the title get to their head, right? They feel like the most important in the room and everybody should be listening to what they're saying, and it's their way or the highway, right? And I think a lot of times, when that happens, the folks that are in the room tend to then shrink themselves to match that energy.
Yep, absolutely. Or there's no place for me, or their imposter syndrome starts to kick in. And so I always say, like, bad leaders leave a mess, good leaders leave like a mark, X marks the spot. But great leaders leave you the map so you can go try it out yourself, right? So you can try
Love
to
that.
go find it, and I'll be here. I'll be here, but you got this, right? And I think we need to remember that in leadership, that we are guides. We're not the hero here. There's no hero of the story. Our job is to help people get to their own greatness, to thrive, to wherever they want to go. And that's why I think we spend so much time with people, right? What do you want to do when you grow up? How do you want to, how do you want to be? All that stuff.
I think that's such a fundamental difference, is because so many leaders, they get their significance from the title, and then once they've gotten the title, they stop the growth because
Yes.
they think, okay, I've made it.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that I just love so much about you is, you never have stopped growing. You're always, looking to do more, be more, and have more impact, not for you, but because it brings you so much fulfillment to help others. And I think people forget sometimes that is how we feel fulfillment. It's through growth, and it's through meaning. It's through being a part of something bigger than myself.
Exactly. Well, thank you. That's a beautiful compliment. Thank you so much. Yeah, it's all like, we need one another. We're all wired to belong with one another. We're all wired to be in this kind of community connection with one another. And it's not always easy. And that is something that we just need to remember. It's not always going to be easy for the 3 people sitting next to you, because of wherever they come from, how they started their day, the fact it's their first job, so forth and so on. And so we leaders need to create that space, that safe space for people to at least say, you know what, I have an idea. Can I raise my hand? Never spoken up before. Yeah, of course you can. Of course you can.
That's right. So how do you continue to create that, especially with your organization that is continually growing, right? How do you create that space of having everybody feel a sense of belonging in such a huge organization?
Yeah, well, that's the $1 zillion question. And I'm open for any kind of answers here. So you spend time with people. You spend time starting to learn who they are. I want all of their managers and leaders, and this is a flywheel, right? This has to be consistent, to start to understand where their people are, and also be okay with where you are. So as a leader, you might have had a terrible morning. Rice Krispies all over the floor, and the dog got sick, and the kids got a tantrum, and you didn't get the workout in, all of whatever, right? Life on life's terms. And so our job is to A, remember that we're human, and B, try to be honest about that, because that lets other people in. If we can share some kind of vulnerability, God, I had sat in 2 hours of traffic. Oh my God, I'm so, whatever. And then I think it just allows for the human condition, which is like, it's not always easy, my friends. It's not always easy. And so what are we doing What am I doing? I'm spending a lot of time with individuals, a
Yeah.
lot of time, whether or not it's in one-on-ones, which are 15-minute, or it's in groups, or I'm taking them to dinner, or, but I'm not the only person that's doing that, the one-on-ones, whether or not it's Gary or the other leadership. What we need to do, and this is, I think, the zillion dollar question is, how do we make sure that the communication is flowing from, Ingrid, if you're the leader of this very large account and you spend a lot of time with your people, and Brooke is doing what I do and also knows some nuances about one of those people or two of those people that they don't feel comfortable sharing with you. We have to be able to put A and B together
That's right.
to really understand how to grow and develop people. And sometimes that is bespoke to that individual, and sometimes it's scalable.
Hmm. I love that because I'm a small business owner. And that's something that I struggle with from time to time because you get busy, right? I'm a mom. I'm a business owner. So it's easy for a leader to say, you know what? I'm going to not have that one-on-one this week. It's okay. Right. And then 1 week turns into 2 weeks, 2 weeks turns into 3 weeks. And all of a sudden you are just disconnected and your team no longer trusts you. That is something that is definitely a priority, I feel like, for a lot of leaders. They should make that a priority at least.
Yes, and if you can't meet with this person this week or this day, just explain. It's not personal.
Hmm.
It's really not personal. I think that's the part that sometimes we forget. It's not that I don't want to spend time with you. I've got to get this out the door so we can get paid or
Yeah.
something like, and I think the other thing is there's this very fine line between coddling, which we don't want to do, and expecting people to there's the coddling, and then there's the, hey, I'm paying you and I expect you to be able to come in and do your job and emotionally regulate yourself. And that's what we want. Not everyone's able to do that. Not everyone knows how to take care of themselves. And then that's our own judgment call of, is that cool in this workplace with this team, or is that, something that is really, really going to affect our speed?
And I know you talk about being, a really empathetic person, especially after you became a mom a little over 7 years ago. What you're saying, do you feel that leaders who are highly empathetic could struggle with what you're saying because they're so dang understanding of what people are going through? Like, at what point do you have to make the decision of, okay, I have to reel this in a bit?
Yeah. So the answer is yes. I mean, I'm a highly sensitive person. I'm sure you are too. And so I pick up on people and I pick up on energy constantly. I've gotten very good at compartmentalizing that. And I don't know if that's the right word, but I have to because I can't take it all on. If I get saturated in what's going on with you, I'm no good to you. You need me to be separate so I can hear and coach and guide you in a different way.
Mm,
I do think it's very difficult for empathetic people or heart led people to know that just because they're separating with love. It has nothing to do with, it's not shame on that person or I'm bad. It's like, I need to preserve my energy
Mm.
because I need to go see 20 people like you today. And so, it does, I think it takes a lot of practice, and it takes also a self awareness of understanding, getting to that place of, I know I'm not an a-hole if I say to this person, you know what? I just want to make sure you have support outside of here, right? It's like a common thing you can say. Just want to make sure you have a support system for what you're going through outside of work. I'm not a bad person for saying that. I'm just making sure they're set up so I don't have to take that weight on also.
yes. Separating with love. Yeah, I absolutely love that. From a leadership standpoint, do you have some like tactical, small, everyday things that a leader could do to help a person know that you don't have to have it all figured out to belong here?
Yeah, great. Let's start with you, leader. What don't you have figured out, leader?
Oh my gosh, so many things.
There's a ton I don't have figured. So, yeah, what can a leader do today is to figure out what they want to share with this person of when they started out, when they were in their third
Mm,
career, the hiccups and the pitfalls they had and when they fell down. Who has
Hmm.
it figured out? My gosh,
mm.
who has it
Like
figured out?
staying relatable. It's honestly not forgetting your own journey.
That's right. And that's, not everyone wants to share their journey, and that's okay. But as a leader, you need to let people in. Otherwise, just the stone cold face, like who's going to want to work with you? That's scary to me. Oh my God. You don't have, like, you don't bleed, you don't have skin. You already know, like I speak as I am. What makes you not want to share with that person? You need to check yourself. Like,
Yeah.
how do you expect this person to feel welcome if you got it all together and you're buttoned up and every pencil is sharpened? Like, it's not reality today.
That's one of the things that I think that is a big thing around today's work culture. So they expect leaders in their organization to always be polished, to always show up, always be, the thing that they're expected to be, right? And
Yeah.
so when leaders are expected to show up very professional, but then they miss their one-on-ones, they don't have that connection. But all of a sudden, when something happens and they're not aware about it, then they're wondering why didn't they come and talk to me about it? Right?
Yeah.
Because there was never that relationship or that environment to have that type of conversation. So I think it's interesting how today's work culture is that way and shifting to making it be a safe place to have those types of conversations.
Yep.
So, Claude, what would you say is a great starting point for a leader to ask their team members to break the ice in having that type of conversation?
Yeah. So I would say in a one-on-one. So if you are going to have weekly or biweeklies with your people, I think it's very important to ask the person how they want to work with me. So do you want to do some show and tell of your work once a week and then we work on your growth the next? What do you want out of this relationship? Because obviously you want to get promoted at some point. So are we going to work on that? Like, where are you going? What's your vision? Or is this just a stepping stone and you actually are going to go start your own company in 2 years? Like, let's know that. But you also have to have the backbone to take the response. So yeah, I want to do this. I want to learn the skill and then I want to jump in 3 years. Okay, well, that's important information to know. So what does that person need from you? And then what do you need as the leader, the manager, from that person to show growth, to show that they're in it to win it, to show that they are working really hard on this skill and thinking strategically? And what does that mean? So expectation setting is where that lives. And then that person understanding the role, the responsibility, and your expectations. So it can be a great two-way street. And then you're understanding what they want out of you. Like, they want to be you in 10 years. How do I get there? That kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Communication.
I think so many leaders too, they make assumptions, and just the idea of assuming nothing and clarifying everything, I think it alleviates heartache later on. And one thing you did that I loved is when after you had breakfast with Gary and he basically said you're going to be the chief heart officer. You asked the question, what does success look like for me? Like, how are we going to know I succeeded? And I thought, man, what a great question. Was there like a trigger in your mind of the motivation to even want to know that information?
Yeah, I was like, okay, this is a mega job and there is no job description. So I need to know some parameters. And Gary is Gary. And so he gave me a very, emotional one. And throughout the years, I've then worked with people to put data around that.
Yeah,
So,
I love that.
yes, I'm a feeler and I can pretty much walk through the room and be like, oh, that person. But I never know for sure and I don't want to assume. And so what's the data? How many sick days does that person take in? Or how many pay raises have they had in the last 18 months or job jumps or, all of that stuff. So yeah, I needed to know, like, what are you judging me on? What are you, right?
Yeah, because it's like, am I meeting expectations? Am I not?
Yeah.
Is this a success?
Well,
How do we know?
throughout the years, there have been some years where I've hit it out of the park and some years where I haven't. And he'll tell me.
Yeah.
Good.
That's what we need. We need more of that, honestly.
To know. Yeah. Which I really,
That's how we grow.
Yeah.
Is there one habit that a leader should stop doing? Like maybe it's something that feels productive, but it actually is disconnecting your people.
I think thinking that you have all the answers. Yes. Stop micromanaging. Why are you micromanaging people? Why do you feel like you need to control the situation? Do you not trust them? Because that's a whole another bag of tricks? Or do you just feel like you need to have your thumbprint on everything? Okay, well, that's a whole nother bag of tricks. But know why you're micromanaging. I think that for sure. The assuming that everyone understands what you're saying, especially if you're using jargon, not everyone understands. Like we know people learn differently and take in information differently. So, I mean, I've just said a few things there. I think really the checking yourself. Why am I doing this? And is there any way you can reframe that? Oh, or trust the process. I think those are really big things. And I think the major one is, what should a leader stop doing? Armoring up.
Now we're gonna switch this off a little bit. You're not just a chief heart officer, you're also an author, but you're also a mother. So how
Yes.
does all of this translate into parenthood and being a good partner? So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. Well, parenthood kicks butt every day. Every hour of the day, I am humbled and surprised and in so much joy and probably irritated or frustrated. It's just like the real deal. But what parenthood has really helped me with is I would say, A, being present, really being present, not being on my phone, that kind of stuff, and creativity, I would say for sure. Like also, just like my kids they each got roller skates for the holidays. And I have a 7-year-old and a 4.5-year-old. And just like watching the 4.5-year-old want to be like the 7-year-old and like there and like understanding that maybe some of her limitations still with her own speed or muscles. But really it's helped me be, I would say, more present, understand my why on a very large scale. My why is for them. That's why
Mhm.
that's why I do what I do because I love it, but I do what I do because I want them to see what it's like to love work. And I also want to set them up, hopefully, for success
So
for sure.
I love that. With you having big responsibilities at work and obviously in an effort to have more presence in your family life, there's this culture where, people want work-life balance, but that doesn't really ever exist. So what do you do to, one, be more present? And do you work at home? Like how does that work out for you? Work-life
Yeah.
balance.
Yeah. So you're right. There is no balance. And I actually think it's life with work inside of life, but we need to like absolutely flip flop that as a society. And hopefully, we'll do it while we're still alive. If not, our kids will experience that because it's not work life balance, it's life and work is a part of life. That's that. The minute our first daughter came out, I knew I was no longer going to be a workaholic and I knew I was gonna have to have boundaries, and so I did, and I'm lucky. I've been in the working world for a while. I've probably earned that in many ways, right? I try not to start before 9, and I try to stop at 5:30 latest, and then I'll get back online. I will definitely do some work on the weekends if it's there. I like that though, you know?
Mhm.
So funny on Saturday morning, I think my daughter was looking at her iPad. She goes, "Do you want to just do your work in here?" It was really cute. Like we're both on our computers. It was really, really cute. Feeling empowered to say, you know what, this is my calendar. My calendar doesn't own me. I'm in charge of it. And these are priorities for me. So it doesn't mean that it's still hard to just be a human sometimes and say like, oh, I'm going to take the day off or I'm going to be off this day, just like all of us. But I do think it's really important as parents to figure out what the boundary is. And because you can't do it all and
Right.
you don't want to be on your phone and talking to the kids about their day and what'd you say? How was that gym
Yes.
class? And
Yeah.
none of us are perfect.
That's something that I've been learning recently, and that is that you are allowed to have time. I had a moment last year. I have 3 daughters, and I went to, I've been a workaholic since, I became a teen mom. I got pregnant at 16, and ever since then, I've been determined to be the mom I wished I had had. And so
Mm.
that has caused me to really be full steam ahead and more, 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 more. It's like I'm trying to prove myself to no one, but it's like I'm trying to prove something that I'm not my parents, basically. And so I've always been full steam ahead, work, work, work. And that's how I've gotten here. But I had a moment last year. I went to my middle daughter won Leader of the Month at her school. And so, I was so fortunate. I wasn't traveling. I was going to get to go to it. And I met one of the other moms and she said, "So what class is your daughter in?" I didn't know. I could get emotional thinking about it. Was like, I don't know. And I'm so grateful I have an amazing husband who is like Mr. Mom, but I thought, I don't know who her teacher is. And so I decided to make a huge career shift and, step out on my own. And now it feels weird. Like I have this, podcast with you all today, and I don't really have much the rest of the day intentionally. And it feels so weird. And I am every day having to tell myself, you've done everything you need to do. It's okay. But it is so hard to get out of that.
Yes. But I will say you have certainly earned it. And what I say to people, and I talk about it in the book, is whenever we have that doubt, really try to look for the evidence of like, yeah, I have busted my butt. I did learn. I hustled from 16 on, 15 on, whatever. Like sometimes we just have to have that little talk with ourselves or like write it down and say like, yeah, there is evidence that I deserve this.
Mm-hmm.
It's like for some reason though, we don't feel like we do.
No.
For whatever reason.
A human condition. And I hope when we go wherever we're going after this, we find out.
Well, Claude, I mean, we're hoping that you're going to write another book called Be Yourself at Home.
Yes.
Maybe that's the sequel.
You figured it out. The book is really Be Yourself, ... And I'm talking about work because that's where we're so much time. Yeah, be yourself on the soccer field. Be yourself at the dentist. I don't know. Be yourself wherever. And it's not going to happen overnight, and you're not going to jump in the pool and do a cannonball. You're going to, take baby steps. And if we can do that as individuals and allow as a society for people to like have the time to get to know themselves, I just think we will be better off.
I agree.
Well, Claude, thank you so much for joining us today. We are very, very thankful for the time that you gave us.
You both. I love how real you both are. And it just, what you see is what you get. And it's funny how we started the talk, right? Like, and it's like, no, we're just who we are. And I love that.
That's right. And for those of you that are listening, Brooke and I were very admittedly nervous to have Claude on our show today. And we said, okay, we have to be really polished. We have to ask her all the questions. And we just got to be like, not our authentic self. And I was like, no, we can't do that because we're talking to Claude and she will call us out.
I mean, I really thought too, I was like, I'm wearing a hoodie. Well, I was like, but I feel like wearing a hoodie today. I
love
don't
that.
feel like wearing it. So I get you.
Hashtag wear the hoodie. Hoodie that says wear the hoodie.
Wear the hoodie. I love it.
Oh, I just want to say thank you. And in preparation for this podcast, I watched your TED Talk. I listened to you on other podcast episodes. I read your book, and it was so funny because right before I logged on here, I was thinking how just through researching you, I have grown as a human, and I just feel like I've become better. And so I know that people are going to get so much out of this book. And whether it be listen to this podcast or anything else, I know you're on a mission to change people one person at a time, and just know that you're absolutely doing it.
Thank you, Brooke. I really appreciate that. Beautiful
That's right.
soul. Thank you.
So we are going to link Claude's book in our show notes. But Claude, if somebody wanted to purchase your book, where can they go?
You know what? If you want to purchase just one, go to Amazon. If you want to purchase more than one, reach out to me because there's a lot of discounts to get and a lot of bonuses and a lot of Claude time, quite frankly. So then just reach out to me at Claude@ClaudeSilver.com.
All right.
Yeah.
For all you sales leaders, you better get to ordering because it's going to change the way that you lead at work. So thank you so much for joining us.